Okay, so I'm looking forward to this conversation with Teresa. Teresa has been one of my clients working, with pet industry business owners, and Teresa runs Happy Paws in Missoula, Montana. And I want to bring her on today to share a little bit of her experience, to showcase some of progress, positive results, and things that people get when working with me. So, can you, give me a little bit of a reminder of why or how we first connected?
Yeah, I actually started to see your posts in some of the dog daycare um, Facebook groups. I was starting to follow those, looking for some help, looking for some inspiration, if you will. I felt like we were really kind of struggling as a business on a couple of different levels.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that caught my eye was just how engaging your posts were.
Mm,
Um, I was really intrigued by the fact that not all of them were like, here's a photo of the dog of the day, because I think that just becomes too cliche.
right.
And so I found them very engaging.
Oh, okay, nice. So then, with that, how are things with the business before we started working together? You did mention that, you felt like you might have needed some assistance, or things weren't working necessarily as ideally as you wanted to. Can you kind of give me some, or the viewers rather, some specific examples of how things were before we began?
Absolutely. Um, I was honestly at a point where I was feeling really burnt out, and I know that happens to a lot of people in this industry.
Right.
And part of the reason I was going to these groups was I knew I wasn't alone, but
Mhm.
I also knew I didn't want to give up. I'd put my all my life in savings and everything into this business, and here I was almost right out the door. I was ready to quit and just walk away from it because I was so burned out. I felt like the days were chaotic. I really didn't have control of my staff. I didn't have control of the day to day. I was running around putting out fires, answering questions, and not focusing on the things that I needed to focus on to make the business successful.
I was going to ask you, actually, did it feel like you were just constantly putting out fires, and then you came right out and said that? So, yeah, and it's tough place to be, right? Because it's like everything that you feel like you need to do to progress the business gets pushed aside because you've got fire after fire to, extinguish.
Yes.
So then what would how do you feel like things are right now in the business?
I am really excited for this next year. I feel like we put in some amazing framework
Hmm.
that I can continue to use. I feel a lot less chaotic. I'm not going to say every day is perfect. I'm not going to
Sure.
say that staffing issues have miraculously gone away or anything like that. But I feel like I have tools that allow me to manage them better. I think one of the biggest things that I took away from our coaching was that it was okay to stand up for myself. It was
Okay.
okay to stand up for myself to my clients and to my staff.
So just to
We,
elaborate that on, do you mean like kind of setting boundaries, or
yes, setting boundaries, not feeling like I need to apologize to clients for charging them for things, not apologizing to staff for not holding their hand,
right?
and actually making them go out and try to figure out how to do their job on their own.
Hmm.
I had a lot of guilt over that for a while.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad that, maybe it's reduced, maybe it's not gone, but because it makes a big difference, if we're constantly trying to do everything for everyone else. By default, our own needs get pushed to the side, which then makes it really hard
Yep.
to continue to do that, right? So, and lots of times boundaries are really healthy and are required so we don't burn ourselves out and then
Yep.
leave an industry that we loved at one point.
Yep. And I just took some of your tools and your templates too, and I've used them to kind of organize daily, weekly, monthly. Like, here's what needs to get done. Here's how I'm going to do it. Um, and kind of done a better job for myself and taking some time and saying, okay, I need to get X, Y, and Z done. This is how I'm going to do it.
So a little bit more strategically planning things or carving out time to,
Absolutely. Both, both.
yeah, for sure. And for me, it's been one of the biggest needle movers, if you will, for, pushing and propelling my various businesses forward, by carving out time to be like this doesn't have to get done, but it's really important to me, and I know it's going to actually help with our next steps that are coming. That some of these fires, that is someone else's fire, not mine, right? Like it's just like
Right.
they need something urgently, and you're like, fair enough, I understand, but I'm not going to drop everything that's important to me to put out your fire that you created yourself. I will help you
Yep.
for sure. But like you're going to have to give me maybe a day or two, for example. And a lot of little things like that add up to, you realize that, and not, I'm speaking about myself, not you, but I realized at a time that I was, how do I say, most of my day to day was based on putting everyone else's fires out and my own,
Right.
but like everyone else's priorities became their high priorities became my high priorities, which was not
Agreed.
helping me get where I wanted to go. So I almost adopted that the high priority of theirs was now mine too, when I shouldn't have, right? And that's
Yeah.
when, through learning and some skills and some strategies, to be like, okay, I understand that's a really high priority for them, but it's not to me. I will help them, but it's
Right.
not going to be, I'm not going to drop every single thing I have to do it today or
Hmm.
this second. So,
Well, and I think of all of the coaching, for me, the most valuable was giving them a question back. Where do you think you could find that? How do you think you should approach it? How would you feel with X, Y, or Z happening, and how do you think you could make it feel better? Um, Putting it back really has done a lot of empowering for the employees.
sure,
Now, I've got a few that refuse to do that, and that's a different process now because we're kind of cleaning house a bit, if you will.
sure.
Um, and so for those employees, they were like, "Oh, you're right. I don't think I would have liked that. I think that would have made me feel uncomfortable. Here's what I should have done, or here's what I could have done." And my staff is actually talking to each other more about, like, I'm sorry, I should have done this.
Right.
They're actually really more engaged about it's not your duty, my duty, it's our duty to
Hmm.
make sure the dogs and clients are happier. So I think that's the big thing. Now, I can't say that every single person on the team has adopted that, but
Sure.
um, the ones that have, it's been huge.
Well, and it's such a different way that sometimes, because it's like, on some level, not exactly the same, but like, raising a child. I have a 12-year-old son. If he just asks me, "Hey, dad, where's my thing?" And I tell him, he's going to become reliant on always being like, "Where's my stuff, dad?" And I'm like, "Where do you think it is? Where did you leave it?" "I'm not sure." "Where
Yeah,
could you look?" So turning back to help them make decisions and be less reliant on my feedback, or because it's similar to when, whether you're trying to just get people to do more on their own, or you're trying to empower them to take like new tasks on. Like, let's just pretend you wanted one of your team members to set up a new kind of service or stream of revenue, right? Well, if you just tell them every single answer, they're not going to feel confident to do that again. You're just like, I
right.
might as well have done it myself. But if you ask questions, you're like, where do you think you could find that answer? What would you do?
Yep.
And then you're just like, it's fine with me. If it's fine with you, go ahead. And they're like, oh, okay. And you help them learn to trust themselves.
Yes. That's been huge.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got three employees in particular that have really run with that.
Yeah. That's awesome because it allows you to open up a lot of time and not have to
Mhm.
field like it's 10, 15, 20 calls or text messages extra, but then also makes them feel more confident to even take on more, responsibilities and roles.
I had to laugh last week. I witnessed them doing it to each other. Well, what do
That's,
you think that does? Or where do you think you'd find that? Or
yeah, that's
and it's
perfect.
like, wow, okay. So that was amazing.
And that's why it's so interesting how like leadership is top down, right? Like lots of times you didn't do this, but I've encountered people that are like, "Oh God, I can't get my staff, or it's hard to hire, it's hard to do that, it's hard to these people are these kids these days and all these kinds of things." And I'm like, well, some of those things might be true, but like what
Mhm.
if I know, especially as a dog trainer, as a parent, as a business coach, it's like I know that if I change, by default, everyone around me changes. So something I can control is my behavior. So what if I tried to do things differently that might positively influence a different result? And that's always empowered me to make a lot more change than some other people might because they're expecting someone else to do the changing, not them.
Yes.
And my son reminds me the biggest one is I remember a time when he was younger and I'm like, oh my gosh, I like wish he would just act this way or do this thing. And I'm like, what am I thinking? Like, he's 8.
Yeah.
I'm in my late 30s at the time. I'm like, I need to show up different, so he shows up different. Like, it's
Yep.
ridiculous for me to expect him to change. He's 8. Or like a
Yep.
dog, right? It's like I have to change how I'm leading that might positively influence the situation. So,
Right.
anyways. Okay, cool. Were there any unexpected benefits that you didn't already share? And if you did, it's all good. That you wanted to talk about from the course.
Unexpected benefits. You know, I think I've covered most of them. I think
Sure.
just there was a lot of empowerment for me. I can give you a big one, and this was a huge one for me. I have always been the person that's like, oh, I'm so sorry. We're going to do a pricing increase, and I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. And, I know this affects you. And, but, it's insurance, it's property taxes, it's, whatever. And I'm so sorry. And I felt like I was constantly apologizing. Um, and I think something, a conversation with you and I that kind of struck home was it's a business, it's not personal. I don't need to apologize to run my business. And
Right.
I think that was huge for me. That we did a price increase after 18 months, and I only had one person even say boo about it. Um, and then that was it.
Hmm. Well, and that was like one of the trainings I created, which was like, complaint-free price
Yep.
adjustments.
Yeah.
And,
And I changed the
or like,
process.
yeah, and you followed it and that's perfect. And is it going to be 100% complaint-free? No, but it's going to be a lot less. But also part of it, like, is what I was reinforcing is like, if you help people see the value in what you're doing,
Yep.
you don't have to apologize for a price increase. It's like if they want less value, it's fine. They can go to somewhere else and get
Yeah.
less of a service. That's okay.
Yep.
But this is to maintain this level of service. This is what needs to happen. And, people tend to be more receptive to that than me because people just sometimes go about it the opposite way where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. No, 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 no. Here's what we're going to charge. Whereas I like to take more of a say, hey, this is what we do. This is why we do it. And this is the cost of doing business. Just as a heads up, this is where it's going.
Yep. Yep.
And then
And
the
nobody
end.
flinched for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. If someone was on the fence about taking, one of my courses, I have numerous ones, but let's say marketing accelerator, business expansion, etc., would you have anything that you would want to share with them?
I would say do it. Um, do it 100%, 110%. I have already looked at just kind of what we've done since the first of the year with pricing increases that we've implemented now and our new enrichment services that we
Right.
did as an add-on through our expansion. And that will easily pay for the cost of coaching without blinking an eye. We haven't even tried to promote it all that much, and we are getting engagement daily.
Yeah, definitely. Well, plus you deployed that some of the enrichment stuff, this a few weeks ago or so, and right
Yeah.
off the bat, you were starting swinging,
We're only
flying.
2 weeks
So,
in, and we're already, yeah, really getting amazing feedback from our customers.
yeah, and less resistance. People will say like, yeah, for sure, I'd love to add on that enrichment. I'd love to do that. So
Mhm.
that's excellent. So awesome. Well, I appreciate the time you took to jump on the call with me, and obviously getting to know you some and spending this time with you these past few months.
Yeah.
And All
It's
the
been
best.
amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.